Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is my great pleasure to open this debate and for the opportunity to explore with ministerial colleagues and others the potential economic benefits of a southern Heathrow rail link. My belief is that a southern rail link fits exactly with the spirit of the times. It exemplifies the ambitions set out by the Prime Minister that after the pandemic, Britain will not only have a thriving future, but one that is cleaner and altogether smarter than what went before. This is not the first time that honourable members have sought to raise the issue of rail access to Heathrow from the south. It is indeed the very intractability of this question which causes me to bring it back to the House for further examination today, and I do so with a strong support from my neighbour and honourable friend, the member for Woking. With your permission, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to briefly cover that history, to look at progress since the announcement of the most recent government initiative in 2018, to explain what economic and indeed environmental benefits such a link could bring to the nation as a whole, as well as to my constituents in Guildford, and provide my honourable friend, the Minister, with the opportunity to bring us right up to date. I'll give way.
The honourable lady for giving way, and to congratulate her also on this adjournment debate. She will know it's an issue on which I've been engaged, I think, for over 4 years, and it was in 2015 that Heathrow Council put forward a proposal for a route for Southern Rail access to Heathrow from the London and the Surrey markets, inclusive of a station in Bedfont in my constituency. That was important as well to underpin regeneration proposals around Heathrow, and its benefit-cost ratio was very favourably assessed by Network Rail. So does she agree with me, and I think she does, that this is a very opportune time to be reconsidering the economic benefits for such a proposal, not least in terms of skilled jobs and a greener infrastructure that we so desperately need, and that direct link from Waterloo to Heathrow that can come? And may I also mention, with my wonderful honourable friend on the front bench from Slough, the opportunity also to consider the Western rail access to Heathrow that has had government approval since 2012.
Well, I thank the honourable lady for her intervention, and I do agree with her that now is the right time to be looking at those economic benefits and the skills and the jobs that it will bring. And I think it's exciting that this sort of project could have bids coming in from a range of different providers, and that the competition would be very, very beneficial. In terms of going from Heathrow to Guildford, I think that's something that could be looked at, Heathrow to Waterloo, that could be something that's looked at in the wider scope of the project. But I'm sure she will understand that I'm very keen to see a line go to my constituents in Guildford. Regarding the Western Link, I'll come on to that later in my speech. Honourable members from outside the southeast of England often and understandably criticise policymakers for taking a London-centric view of issues. I would like to reassure them that London centricity can work to the detriment even of other towns and cities in the southeast. Access to Heathrow is just one example of this phenomenon, as it is possible to reach the airport by train on a number of services such as London Underground's Piccadilly line, the Heathrow Express, Heathrow Connect services, and hopefully, before too much longer, the hugely impressive Elizabeth line, which will bring direct trains to the airport from City and Docklands. Yet it is nigh on impossible to reach Heathrow by train from a whole number of boroughs in the southwest London or substantial towns like mine in Surrey and Hampshire, from some of which it's even possible to see aircraft taking off and landing. Transport authorities serving many of Heathrow's competitor airports, such as Schiphol or Charles de Gaulle, have long since understood that a major hub for flights should also be a public transport hub. In the case of Heathrow, you can arrive by train, if you like, as long as it's coming from the east. This gigantic airport, one of our drivers of economic growth, tourism and investment in normal time, and undoubtedly again after the pandemic, effectively sits at the end of a branch line. Now clearly, there are some other public transport connections to Heathrow which are not based upon railways. The airport is served by a variety of coach and bus connections, which are valuable both to airline passengers and the many thousands who work in the wide range of businesses located there. These services include a direct hourly coach link from Guildford, which was opened within the last 2 years. Nevertheless, however many buses and coaches are available, they fail to attract the really substantial numbers of users who otherwise default to their own cars or to taxis and private hire vehicles. Those vehicles serve to congest still further the greatly overloaded road network serving the airport, causing damage to economic efficiency and reducing the attractiveness of the region south of Heathrow to investment. I'll give way.
Thank you very much. She's making an excellent speech about an incredibly important topic, a rail link from Guildford directly to Heathrow, which will make a massive difference, not only to your, to her constituency, Mrs. Speaker, to her constituency, but also to mine and Mearn Valley and beyond. At the moment, it takes up to 2 hours to get there if you're going by train and by coach, as she's mentioned, but it would take about 45 minutes or less or half the time anyway, going by train. So would she agree with me that it'll take cars off the road, which will make an incredible environmental impact on her constituency as well as the others surrounding Heathrow?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and I couldn't agree more. I think the time spent in the car for these journeys to get to Heathrow from constituencies that are further down the line than mine, further away from Heathrow, it does make an impact on the environment. These cars that are on the roads generate vast quantities of noxious gases and particulate matter harmful to the health and well-being of our citizens, along with substantial volumes of avoidable carbon dioxide. In these circumstances, some might say, build more roads then. But it was recognised by Highways England back in 2016 that there was no amount of road building that could overcome the problem. Their M25 Southwest Quadrant study concluded that only a solution based on public transport investment could address congestion on this vitally important national motorway. Indeed, I understand it is one of the most congested stretches of motorway in Europe. With such a blindingly obvious need for rail access to Heathrow from the south, there have been a number of attempts to find an answer. The most significant of these was a scheme known as AirTrack, devised by BAA, then owners of Heathrow, in the early years of the century. The fundamental and ultimately fatal flaw in the AirTrack proposal was that it was based on knitting together various sections of existing railway with a few short additional stretches, and then gently increasing the frequency of trains, greatly increasing the frequency of trains over those tracks. The Victorian lines had been built in an era where road traffic was horse-drawn, so they intersected at multiple locations with level crossings now serving thousands of cars and lorries every day. The increased frequency of trains over those crossings would cause the level crossing barriers and hence the roads to be closed for unacceptably long periods. When the opposition of road users, communities, businesses and local authorities found voice through honourable members of this House, the AirTrack project was doomed. AirTrack had been conceived in part as an attempt to mitigate the major expansion of airline passenger numbers and employees at Heathrow associated with the opening of Terminal 5. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the one positive legacy from this story is that beneath Terminal 5 there sits in cavernous darkness a station awaiting the arrival of a railway from the south. I should add that I understand similar provision exists for a Western rail link to Heathrow at Terminal 5. The Western scheme has been under development for as long as the Southern route and would contribute to making Heathrow a public transport hub on the international model I described earlier. I know the Honourable Member for Slough has been an energetic supporter of a Western link for the benefits it will bring to his constituents, and I'm delighted to see his interest in the debate this evening. Returning to a new railway for my own area, the prospect of a southern rail link to Heathrow was raised once again as part of the consenting process for the expansion of the airport by means of constructing a third runway. Without revisiting all the many powerful arguments for and against Heathrow expansion, it was noted as part of the scrutiny of the proposal by the Transport Committee, previously chaired by the Honourable Member for Nottingham South, that a southern rail link was urgently needed, even with a 2-runway airport, let alone with a third in place. It was in this context that my right honourable friend, the member for Epsom and Ewell, announced as Transport Secretary in March 2018 that a southern rail link to Heathrow would be the Pathfinder scheme for a radical initiative to attract private sector investment and ideas into the design and construction of new railway infrastructure. This was a widely welcomed announcement, as it opened up the prospect of not just businesses but also local authorities and local enterprise partnerships helping to accelerate the development of vitally needed new railways, rather than having to wait in the queue with many other existing schemes being devised within the traditional rail industry process. Now, more than ever, we need to allow the talent and expertise in the private sector to contribute to our levelling up efforts across the country. I will give way.
Can I say how much I admire my honourable friend's innovative approach to championing infrastructure in her constituency? And does she agree with me that projects like this present an excellent opportunity to steel-making constituencies like mine in Scunthorpe, where we make a number of world-class steel products, such as rail?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and I couldn't agree more. Now is the time to be championing British steel, and she's not only a champion for British steel, but for the jobs that will bring in constituencies like hers, and I would like to see that tie up in opportunities. And we have a style of action now which has been adopted by the new Secretary of State, my right honourable friend, the member for Welland Hatfield, and his colleague, the Minister, who is replying to the debate this evening, in inviting proposals from a range of stakeholders for reversing the Beeching-era rail closures. Sadly, however, more than 2 years have now elapsed since the original invitation for promoters to bring forward ideas for a southern rail link to Heathrow. Members across the House will appreciate that the machinery of government has been disrupted by events since March 2018. But my key question for my honourable friend the Minister is, when will we see full throttle applied to this project? For in truth, there is no conflict between this scheme potentially benefiting South West London, Surrey, Hampshire and the wider south of England, and the government's levelling up agenda for the nations and regions of the UK. Most of the infrastructure schemes envisaged for the North, the Midlands and the South West require significant amounts of public money, but the southern rail link to Heathrow does not. Private sector investors backed by design and construction partners are ready to get on and build this railway, and I believe we should choose one of them to do just that. From the perspective of my own constituency of Guildford, I have been grateful for information supplied to me by the directors of Heathrow Southern Railway Limited, whose design proposal avoids the busy level crossings at Egham, which proved so tricky for Airtrack. They envisage frequent trains from Guildford reaching Terminal 5 in just 29 minutes, and then continuing on to Old Oak Common for interchange with HS2 and the long-awaited Elizabeth line before terminating at Paddington. This will be transformative for my constituents and for the capacity of Guildford and other towns similarly served as Woking, Basingstoke and Farnborough to attract investment. It is little wonder, therefore, that local authorities such as Surrey and Hampshire County Councils, as well as the Enterprise M3 LEP, want to see urgent action taken by the government. In conclusion, may I say to my honourable friend the Minister, the station is waiting at Heathrow. Let us lay down the tracks, enable the building of a southern rail link to Heathrow, and stoke the engine of prosperity in Guildford and beyond.
And with permission from the mover and the Minister to make a short contribution, Dr. Ben Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend, the member from Guildford, and the Minister for allowing me to speak in this debate. And I just admire as well the strength and the tour de force that the member of Guildford has put forward the case for a southern rail link. And it will provide a local economic boost that will create and support jobs in Runnymede and Weybridge as well, at a time when this is sorely needed. It will deliver greater connectivity between Heathrow, London and my constituency, and cement my constituency as one of the best places to live and work in Surrey, alongside, of course, my friend's constituency of Guildford. A southern rail link will improve our local infrastructure and economy, but crucially it helps us meet our environmental targets. Air pollution and noise pollution from the M25 and the M3 affect us quite badly in Runnymede and Weybridge. We want people to use public transport, but the infrastructure needs to be in place. This will support the aviation sector, which both directly and indirectly supports many jobs and businesses in Runnymede and Weybridge. So a new train track to Heathrow Airport will not just help those wanting to head off to Lanzarote and create jobs in the sector, and dare I say, I think everyone at the moment in this country could do with a holiday. But for people who are in those jobs, it will help them day in and day out get to work. That's a critical point in our country's economic recovery from COVID. A southern rail link will help us not just bounce back, but bounce higher.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's a pleasure to speak in this debate, and I'd like to start by thanking everyone who has contributed to this evening's debate, and to extend further congratulations to my honourable friend, the member for Guildford, for securing this debate on the economic benefits of a southern rail link to Heathrow Airport, and indeed to all others who've contributed, the honourable member for Runnymede, the honourable member for Feltham and Heston, Meon Valley, and of course my honourable friend, the member for Scunthorpe, who is unrelenting in her passion and for her town and its core industry, as I think she will find we are in the rail industry too. My honourable friend for Guildford's question on the economics of a southern Heathrow rail link is one my department has been considering for some time, as she outlined. Our Heathrow Rail Access Programme was established in December 2016 with the aim of providing a step change in accessibility at Britain's busiest airport. Unless travelling from central London, the current public transport offering to Heathrow is poor. Many people choose to use their own cars instead, leading to the traffic congestion that my honourable friend outlined. Improving transport links to the airport will open up access for many regions of the United Kingdom, and a southern access scheme would open up new markets across the southwest of London and indeed the southeast of the United Kingdom, providing an attractive alternative to the heavily congested road network. Whilst demand for air travel has fallen dramatically due to the coronavirus pandemic, we are supporting and want to see the recovery of the aviation industry. Thus, we recognise the importance of major schemes such as this in both encouraging people back to air travel as well as supporting passengers as they return. The scheme she mentions would be part of the government's plan to build back better, build back greener, build back faster. And we want to rebuild Britain, fuel economic recovery across the United Kingdom. And as she knows, this government has committed to building a Britain with world-class infrastructure and has established Project Speed, ensuring that we are building the right things better and faster than before. Project Speed is ideal a method of dealing with some of the delays that we've had with the Southern Link. The Heathrow Rail Access Programme comprises two major schemes. The Western Rail Link to Heathrow, serving Reading to London Paddington via a new tunnel to Heathrow, is the other one. And I am too pleased to see the Honourable Member for Slough in his place. Not only does he give me proper scrutiny of everything that I try to do in the ministry, but I know he is passionate about making sure that the Western Rail Link to Heathrow actually comes about and does what it says on the tin for his constituents and others. So I'm pleased also to see him in this debate, as my honourable friend mentioned. The other, the one we're talking about here, the Southern Access, is at a much earlier stage of development than the Western Rail Link project and intended to link directly Terminal 5 to the southwest of London, potentially as far out as Surrey and Hampshire. And I know this is something not only my honourable friend for Guildford welcomes, but a whole host of people across Surrey also. I believe, happily give way.
I thank the Minister for giving way, and he and I have spoken briefly as well about this since he took up his post. And could I just perhaps make a request to the Minister, because I think there is an opportunity potentially in this world of Project Speed to want to move forward, and there have been sometimes, not a coherent debate or a proper assessment and proper criteria against which we would really evaluate a scheme. And in the interests of the honourable member for Guildford, who wants to see support for her constituents, in the interest of regeneration and knowing that it takes 2 buses sometimes to get 1.5 miles to Heathrow for my constituents as well, for work or for travel. Would it be a time to perhaps look at convening a cross-party kind of small task force in this place to look at how we might break through some of that and give those perspectives from our constituency to help move this forward for the Minister?
Well, as I hope I'll outline, this project is actually moving forward at a decent pace, and will do. But I do think extra scrutiny from this place too, because there will be barriers. There will be people who rightly want to scrutinise any decisions that are made on this, and I think actually that would be a very, very valuable suggestion to take forward as this project does move forward, because it is an important project. It's currently led by my department. It's a pathfinder project, as my honourable friend said, seeking to harness all innovative forms of delivery and technology from the private sector to deliver a better service for passengers and ensure better value for money for the taxpayer. I do understand, as my honourable friend said, that of all passengers travelling to Heathrow Airport, only about 21% of them who travel from the south use public transport instead of private road vehicles. And for areas such as Surrey and Hampshire, where and in Guildford especially, I'm told this is lower still. So we know there is a market that exists for this. This is in comparison to almost half of passengers and airport staff travelling to Heathrow Airport by public transport from London and to the east of the airport. Good progress is being made. Since the publication of the strategic objectives of November last year, my officials are now currently finalising the pre-strategic outline business case. My department loves a bit of jargon, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to outline the case for change and the need for a scheme such as this, and to set out practically how the scheme could be and should be taken forward. They have been and continue to be working closely with commercial advisors to develop commercial and financial models with the intention of working alongside the private sector to fund, finance and deliver this scheme. This scheme is in its infancy, and as of yet no route or mode has been selected. And there's also a possibility of more than one type of intervention to boost transport options. It can, however, be assumed that heavy rail will play a major part in the southern access to Heathrow. It's clear to see that there is a strong case for improving transport links in the region that I've described, and not just for airport passengers and employees, but for those who live in the wider area and would benefit from the roads being freer around Heathrow, and indeed the extra public transport options this would bring. So while there are many different options for this scheme, we know the potential benefits are pretty clear. First and foremost, it encourages people from their vehicles onto public transport, reducing congestion. And we know that this can be achieved through the creation of new and accessible, high-frequency, reliable transport links with interchanges and step-free access that this scheme would bring. It also helps us reduce the environmental impact of aviation and reducing the associated carbon emissions, an important step on the path to net zero. And not only by providing new environmentally friendly journey options, but also utilising sustainable construction methods and materials. And it will take into account any key environmental undertakings in that area being developed in collaboration with the relevant local authorities and local enterprise partnerships. Obviously, this could help connect communities, boost economic growth, and encourage regeneration. It would provide greater connectivity and journey choices in southwest London, Surrey, Hampshire to central London, and actually help us with capacity across the southwest rail network as well. It would seek to employ the local workforce and source its apprentices locally, and look to improve trade links locally, nationally and internationally. but not just through passenger trains either, because freight is also an important part of this equation, providing a much-needed boost and connection for the local and national economies. So, as I said, this scheme is very much in its infancy, and there is still much to be developed, but the work carried out to date and the work currently underway demonstrate if we get this right, it would be a really positive step towards the development of transport in the south of the United Kingdom and alleviating many of the pressures that have been outlined in this debate. Working to meet the needs of so many passengers and improve the prospects of so many locally and nationally across the whole of the UK who travel around that part of our country. A scheme such as this does not come without challenges. To ensure the safety of passengers, road users and pedestrians, we will not want to increase the usage of level crossings. Level crossings are a bind for any rail minister who's ever stood at this dispatch box. The new platforms at Terminal 5 are underground, so it will be necessary to excavate tunnels. And it will be required to integrate with new and existing infrastructure, both at Terminal 5 and on the South West Main Line, to name but a couple of those challenges. There is, however, already strong market interest from the private sector. Several of the groups interested have developed scheme proposals to varying degrees. The government tested market appetite in late 2018, and whilst many organisations showed interest in developing and delivering a southern scheme, none were able to progress without some form of government support. So my officials continue to work closely with these scheme promoters, operators, construction companies and capital investors, along with the wider private sector, to harvest the innovation and insight that these can provide and that we can learn from to build a process for securing the best and the very best value scheme possible. The Department will continue to develop the Southern Access to Heathrow scheme, working alongside Network Rail and Heathrow Airport to integrate it with the Western Rail Link and other major transport projects, ensuring the most efficient design and delivery of the whole scheme. So, to conclude, I am very aware of the strong benefits a Southern Access to Heathrow scheme will provide, not only to the passengers and employees of Heathrow Airport, but the people living in the surroundings and of South West London, Surrey, Hampshire and beyond. And I look forward to working with all who are interested in developing this scheme. And I'm keen to move forward at pace. So I'd like to conclude by thanking everybody who's taken part in this debate today for emphasising the importance of this scheme, emphasising the importance of aviation to our country too. I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend for securing this debate on the economic benefits of this scheme and wish her, you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and all who work in the House a peaceful and healthy summer recess. Thank you.